Hi guys and girls, how you going? Mark Hummer here again, of course, and what we're doing today is just reviewing a few videos that we've spoken about previously, a few subjects from them, and also a few tidbits of information to come and in the future. Also a review of some products that I've used very recently, only this weekend. So firstly, what I wanted to discuss about is I did a video on this microphone, and I was comparing it with the ME1. And I just want to let you know that this Daddy microphone, it's the VMic D3 Pro, is a very good microphone. I'm going to stick with that, and I'm very happy with the sound quality and results. I will say also the settings I think I found very interesting. I tried every scale of settings of volume on the microphone and volumes internally in the Nikon Z6, and I found that I had an 8.8 compatibility thing, which seemed to just work really well for me. Now, what do I mean by 8.8? I mean it's setting of 8 on the volume on the actual microphone, which is its own preamp, and then a setting of 8 on the internal microphone preamp in the camera. So 8 at the setting of the camera, 8 at the setting of the microphone. I found that to be the best result for sound quality. It just worked perfectly well. The other thing I'd like to mention is cabling. I mentioned that when you buy this microphone you need the proper TRS cabling to make sure it functions properly. It's just quite specific. A lot of the times we don't use that. But just sort of let you know that with the actual microphone itself, when you purchase it, it does come with this small little cable, little spring-loaded cable here for directly plugging into your camera. And that's on the assumption you would have it immediately on the camera. But for myself, where I have it here, where I've got it several meters away from the camera, well, this is why I was encouraging people to buy cabling. So this cabling here, for example, is the correct type of cabling, and I've purchased a 2 meter and a 3 meter version of those cables, so I can extend it as much as I like should I need to. So it's not that you have to buy cabling to use the microphone, you just need extension cables that are correct if you're going to have it off camera. The other thing I want to talk about regarding cables is I mentioned about these headphones. So I just pick them up here. Now, these are Sennheiser headphones. It's the HD5 Mix, and they're actually a really awesome stereo headphone, and I love using them for checking sound and even watching videos at night when I want to be quiet and not disturb the wife, because nothing worse than, you know, some sort of action movie booming away with explosions and someone's trying to sleep. But I was hoping to explain to you about the cabling, because I mentioned there that you need specific cabling for these as well. So if I can just illustrate them, I'll just pop them out here. Excuse me, I'll just get the right angle to get them out. There we go. And what you'll see here is a 2.5mm plug here, but on the other end of the cable, and get the other end of the cable, it has a 3.5mm plug. You can see the difference there in the sizing. I know they're small and it's quite fine, but you can see here one is actually larger than the other. Now, the reason you must buy this sort of a cable, if you need it, is because the 2.5 actually goes into the headphones, and it fits in there really well and it's nice and tight. But the 3.5, the larger one, goes into whatever you're using, say computer or your iPhone or whatever it is you happen to be using. So of course when you buy the headphones you get a cable with it, but you don't always necessarily want this heavy sort of spring-loaded cable. Sometimes this can be a bit annoying hanging off your neck and be sort of uncomfortable. So if you're going to buy some lighter cabling to have, because you're in close proximity to your computer or TV, then just make sure you get the correct one with the 2.5 on one end of it and the 3.5 on the other, just to make sure it's compatible and works well. So I just want to make sure I clarified that and showed you the cable and what I was talking about. The other subject I wanted to talk to you about was the DJI Ronin behind us here. So this is the DJI Ronin S. I used that quite extensively on the weekend. In fact, I used it for 2 full days. Fortunately enough, it worked on just one charge. So I charged the thing, I got 2 full days worth of use out of it. So that was at least 12 hours worth of work. So that was fantastic. Probably 6 hours of use each day. So I was very impressed with the battery life of it, but apart from that, just as general performance is amazing. The fact that you can keep horizontal no matter where you're moving around, and the fact that it's very easy to use, and you've got this electronic motors at which of course you can adjust the thing to any angle or follow a subject or etc. if you wish to, just with this little joystick at the back. That was a delight. But you know what I also found really cool about that? You can try and get it centralized again by maneuvering it around with the joystick to try and find where your center is, but that's actually a really nuisance and hard work, and especially if you're in a hurry, you haven't got time for all that fiddliness. But I like the fact that it's got a little button just on the front here, where if you give that a click, it immediately locks into forward position and nice and straight. So again, I'll just illustrate. You put it off center and you click the button, There you go, bang, and it pops into its straight and forward position. So that's really convenient. Now it has many other features. You can have it at a low slung angle for doing low objects on the ground. You can do it like a selfie mode if you click it around 3 times. I think it's 3 times. There we go. See, I could do a selfie of myself if I wanted to. Not that I ever would. I'm not pretty enough to do selfies at that sort of close proximity. I'll just scare the neighbours. Anyway, I just put that down there, just letting you know. I really enjoyed using that for the weekend. It worked perfectly well. Got some nice smooth footage. I was following around a big guy actually. He was Terry was in a large costume from Warhammer that he'd constructed and was roaming around the convention centre, and I was able to follow him with that. And not only follow him because I could be mobile, but the fact that I was using the 14 to 30 f4 zoom lens means I could fit him in frame, because it's a big costume he's using. I think it's about 7 foot tall and about 4.5 feet wide, and he's got a bigger one than that coming up soon. And so it's brother Baracus, and he's like 9 feet tall and 6 feet wide, so you need a big wide angle lens to get all that in. And so I'll bring up some little bit of footage to show you about that, just as a sample, to show you that it was functional and worked really well. But I like the zoom lens. That 14 to 30 worked very well for that application, especially when you're in tight quarters. You haven't got a lot of room, you've got people standing behind you, you've got a big object in front. You just don't have the luxury of getting back far enough if I was using a 24 to 70. So the 14 to 30 worked out perfectly and was great for also helping with less wobble and motion in the footage, because obviously the longer focal length you got, more chance you got of getting vibration, movement and jerkiness. So wide angle worked perfectly well. I found at 14 millimeters, and yes, you did get a bit of distortion. You had to be extremely careful of your camera angle so as not to accentuate the lines going out at odd angles, because that's what wide angle lenses do. But I found from about 20 to 30 millimeters on it, I didn't have much of an issue with that at all. So I was very pleased with its performance. I just want to give it a big thumbs up. The Ronin with the Nikon Z6 and that wide angle lens was a great unit for following around doing some video. Speaking about these cameras, now I'm shooting on the Z6 right now because that's my prime video camera. The Z7 I'm using as a sample on top of the Ronin now. I usually would have the Z6 there. But there's nothing wrong with the Z7's footage at all. Just that I feel more confident with the low light ability of the Z6. But I will say on that whenever you get the chance to shoot with these cameras, should you be doing so, always opt for the 4K settings. Whether you're using it at 24 frames a second or 30 to suit yourself, that's fine. But if you can possibly always shoot with that 4K, it is breathtakingly beautiful image. And it's so sharp and clean. The low light is fantastic. I think much better than the 1080 vision. So you can use 1080, anything from 24 to 100 frames a second or plus. But that's great for B-roll when you're trying to do some slow motion, which of course I did on the weekend quite a bit. But I found that the quality drop when you use 1080 in comparison to the 4K almost rules it out for anything other than a special application. So yeah, 4K is gorgeous. Use that whenever you can, and you'll have no disappointment with its quality or its low light ability. In fact, you can bring it up. When I was shooting it up to 3200 on ISO, I saw no drop in quality at all, and that's providing you have some light in the area. So I'm not talking about filming necessarily in complete darkness. I don't agree with that. But in the convention centre, it had lighting, It wasn't ideal. It wasn't very directional and exactly how I would have liked it. I would have liked to have had lighting on the camera, but that just made everything a bit too awkward and drew too much attention to yourself. So I was trying to, because it's a crowded area, I was trying to be as discreet with the camera as possible. And so using the lighting that was available and having settings somewhere around the 1500 ISO to 3000, I thought the imagery was really good quality, so just giving that a big thumbs up too. Talking about things like the cameras, we've got battery life has been claimed to be an issue by some, but I don't agree. I think all you should do is just simply bring more batteries. I mean, I've got 2 here spare just in front of me right now, but I actually have 6 of the batteries available. I've got a few charging right now and 2 in the cameras. So, just buy more batteries if you're ever worried about that. But I went through an entire day of shooting with 1 battery and didn't even have to change it. The second day I just used another battery, or I could have charged it overnight with the 1 battery. But either way, it was no issue at all with battery life. So just as the Ronin was very good, so the Z cameras were excellent as well in that regard. So I just wanted to have a brief discussion about that. I like to cover little bases of things I've mentioned but may not have filled in the blanks before, like that cabling. So something I have as a speculation sort of thing I wanted to talk about was These XQD cards, now the cameras both use a single SQD card at the moment, and they work brilliantly. I've got no issue with them. I think they're great, and they have heaps of storage ability. The one in the Z6 is a 120 gig, and that lasted me the whole day without having to charge it. Having to change it, and that was great. It performed really well, and I never filled it. So I think you'd have to do a hell of a lot of shooting to fill a 120 gig card. But of course, as you can see here, I do have spares, and I have one in the other camera. I can always pinch out if I need it. So, have a few spares. I highly recommend that. Extra battery, extra couple of cards around, just in case. Yeah, you probably won't ever need them, but gee, you don't want to be stuck halfway through a shoot and then be embarrassed because you've run out of memory card or something. But on the theme of these XQD cards, very soon Nikon will be compatible with the new form, the CF Express, which is the same physical format of those, but it's a faster read-write speed. And I think it's about 3 times faster, which is substantial because these things are already lightning fast as it is. I mean, these are 440 read-write speed, megabytes a second. I think the CF Express is something like 1400, so you can see they're substantially faster. And what's the point of all that? Well, it just, obviously you get a faster download speed of all your files, and you get a good buffer range because obviously the buffer's never going to fill. But I think there's actually a lot more coming with that. And I'm just going to speculate here, and I've got no inside information. I don't know any more than anybody else does for Nikon secrets. But I will say, with what would be the only benefit of going CF Express card is that there's some sort of I believe, a coming firmware upgrade or options for the camera. And I'm not talking about just a couple of extra frames per second in shutter speed. I'm not talking about even the buffer being a little better. I'm really thinking that, judging by the video quality and how easily these cameras do the 4K footage at up to 30 frames per second, it is effortless for them, and it's beautiful. And considering that the Z6 is actually downsampled from 6K down to 4K, they've got leeway there. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 12 months, when the CF cards become available and more popular and are tried and tested with the camera, that Nikon don't release a firmware upgrade where possibly, and I'm again just guesstimating here, but they could release the 4K up to 60 frames per second. Maybe so, potentially, because they certainly won't have an issue with memory capability. The buffer speed, the read-write speed, and the downloading will all be fine with those CF Express cards. So I'm just speculating that they might have been holding back on some of the features of these Z cameras as like a card up their sleeve, as it were, for next year. I'd be excited if they did that, but I think at worst you're going to get some faster frame rates and certainly a better buffer on the camera. But don't be surprised if they sneak something else in there as well. That's quite a shock, because I just believe that the cameras are so capable of doing more than what they're doing right now. Maybe we have to wait for the Mark II models. Might be the Z6 Mark II come out in 2 years before they can do that. But I can't see any reason why they can't upgrade the one they got, because they are that good. So apart from that, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about very briefly is tripods and ball heads for these cameras, because there's been times, and I've done videos in the past, where I've had to hire large cameras for video shooting. Even the Sony FS7, for example, which is quite a bulky unit and quite weighty, and for that I bought myself a big fluid head up the back there, and it's the 502 from Manfrotto on a very robust tripod. And I bought that. It was basically the smallest one I could get that would be capable for that camera's weight and ability. But in retrospect now, when you look at it, it's actually more than adequate for these lighter mirrorless cameras. So with a Z6 or a Z7 on that unit, it's even more silky smooth and effortless because there's almost no weight on it. It's not struggling at all. And I find that it's really stable and good. So let me just run you through that. Excuse me a minute while I pick it up. So here we go. This is the one I was referring to. I just dropped that down a bit to carry the weight. So this is the 502 from Manfrotto, and I'm referring here to this fluid head, and it's a beautiful video apparatus. It gives silky smooth movement. Of course, it's all fully adjustable. You just twist the knobs here and so on to adjust speed and fluidity. But I find for video this is actually excellent for these Nikon Z6 cameras, because it's more than big enough and capable to take any accessories you put on the cameras. So let's say you want to put an external monitor on, or you want to have a big say 70 to 200 mm lens on, or whatever external monitors you want to put, maybe an Atmos or something like that, and you've got extra weight, well, these are certainly going to accommodate that, and you're not going to hamper any movement, flow, or productivity. So as a combination, this with this Vanguard tripod, it's a great tripod, really, this one. It's called the Actus 323AT. Now, this is an aluminium tripod. It's actually really heavy, so I just sort of point that out. It's not a graphite one that's or carbon fiber that's really light. It's actually heavy, and I bought it heavy on purpose because at the time when I purchased it, I was expecting very heavy video cameras to be placed on top of it, like the FS7 I was talking about by Sony. But with these mirrorless cameras, of course, it's even more so stable, and I just find it a joy to use it when I do, for fluid movement and stability. So that's one unit I wanted to just direct you to. I'll bring out the other one and I'll show you the other tripod I use. So this one here is a weird looking creature, isn't it? It looks like something from outer space nearly. But this one here is a brilliant little unit, and what we have with this is one that does both video and photos. So it's a Manfrotto one again, on a simple little light Manfrotto tripod. But what I want to show you about this one is the feature that, yes, you have video, but you also have photo. See how here I can do photo in the portrait mode here, right? Okay, so if I want to use it for that or any purpose at all for taking a photo, I can. And of course, you know, you go forward and back in every direction you could possibly want, and it is a fluid head. It isn't just a ball head, so it's very, very smooth and creamy in its motion. But it does have an extra feature that's interesting, and that is this little switch here. We have a mode button where you can go from photo to video. Now, when I have it like this, for example, I can't get it to go vertical anymore. It only stays horizontal, and this is where a mode where you can use it in video and always retain your horizontal plane. So isn't that a great idea that you end up with a fluid video head and a very usable photo head all in the one, and nice and smooth. So just sort of show you through this one. It's a great unit, and I'd highly recommend anybody to get that. I'll leave a little link and all the product description details below later on. Now, I'm not getting any kickbacks for Manfrotto. I just buy their products because I like them and I think they're good quality and they've always worked for me. But yeah, very proud and very impressed with this unit for its versatility, if nothing else. If you wanted to buy one fluid ball head that would do everything, photo and video, well, that's the one I would highly recommend. So just put this down. So other than I'll be putting up some video and photo samples, I just wanted to also talk to you about the Z7. Now, I've got the Z7 on top of the Ronin S there right now, just to illustrate and sample how this comes together and looks. But I was using that for photos on the weekend as well. And still, I'm still quite new to the Z system. I mean, this is only now a few weeks that I've had them, so I'm learning as I go. But I found that the Z7 with the 85mm prime lens that I've purchased recently was absolutely amazing and a great lens camera combination. So you've got the 45.6 megapixels in the Z7, so image quality and detail is not an issue at all. And of course, you have those 500 focus points or thereabouts all around the sensor, so you don't have to recompose anymore. Gee, they used to be frustrating for me with the old DSLRs where I'd have to get focus and then move the frame of the camera to get everybody in how I wanted it composed, and I was always risking losing focus because any slight movement of a camera, well, especially at shallow depths of field, you know, you can easily lose the pinpoint accuracy. But with this now, I just compose the shot and I can pick anywhere on the scene that I wish to have focus, and that's a really great aid. So I'll post some photos how that went too on the convention. I think it worked beautifully. I was very impressed with the image quality and the versatility. It's light, it's easy to carry around with that prime lens as well, as particularly light, and it was comfortable. And I was doing a lot of photos all day one-handed. So when I say single-handed, what am I talking about? Well, I mean, I'll have the camera in one hand, yes, and then I'll have the flash speed light with a diffuser on it in the other hand, so I could maneuver it any way I want to give some light directionality But it's so light you could hold it all day in one hand, you don't even notice you got it in there. And secondly, because of the little joystick and so on you have, which is a great option, and getting focus anywhere in the camera, it was easy to get focus and make it accurate. So I'm just letting you know that that is actually a real option. You've got the in-body stabilization, so no matter what lens you put on it, they're all going to be stabilized, and so any slight little camera shake, it's not an issue. The camera absorbs that for you. So I'll post up some photos just to show you how that went for the weekend. But it was a great experience. I really enjoyed using the Z6 for video with the 14-30. I had a great time with the Z7 with the 85mm 1.8S lens, the prime. It was fantastic, and I'm just sharing my joy at going over to this new Z system, the mirrorless system. I've not regretted it, and I highly recommend any old Nikon users that got some DSLR equipment and thinking, do I want to get involved in this? Yeah, absolutely. Get one or both. Don't be shy in trading over to this system. You won't be disappointed. I know I haven't been. People sometimes like to complain about anything new, and they have an element of fear or apprehension, but I can just assure you from my brief experience with them anyway, there is nothing to be concerned about. They work brilliantly. They're not going to let you down, and I've had nothing but a joyful experience with them.